The final top 247 rankings are out, and on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're going to talk about Adonijah Green, Jamari Johnson, and Aaron Williams making the cut. So with that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On the Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your 2023 goals. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. As always, I want to say thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder that the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. As I mentioned, the final top 247 rankings are out. 3 Cardinals signees made the cut. Adonijah Green, Jamari Johnson, and Aaron Williams. We'll talk about each of those 3 prospects making the list in their own respective segments throughout the show. Beginning with, I think, probably maybe one of the more surprising additions to this list, Adonijah Green. Green was ranked for most of the season and leading up to the season in the top 500 or just outside of the top 500 on the 24/7 Sports Composite, which for those who don't know, what essentially that service does is it brings all of the major recruiting service rankings in and basically averages them out. 24/7 Sports has their own little thing to where they come up with like a top 247, and that's it. They don't go any further than that. So obviously a very exclusive list. You had to be pretty solid to make this list. A couple players that did not make the list, Pierce Clarkson and Madden Sanker, did not make that list. William Fowles as well. As great it is to land on this list, it's not the end-all be-all, right? It doesn't mean that a player or a couple of players aren't going to be good at the college level, so on and so forth. But we'll talk about the 3 that made the list. Adonijah Green, like I mentioned, sort of surprising from a standpoint of seeing how high he jumped up on the list. Same with Jamari Johnson as well. It's really no doubt that I think that Adonijah Green is a 4-star level talent. But I wasn't expecting him to jump up into the top 200. Kind of reminds me of, Travion Cooley jumping up into the top 200 in the final top 24/7 rankings back in 2021. So I think that most Louisville fans, when you think about who's going to be the best prospect in Flyville 23, some will say Pierce Clarkson. Others will look at the defensive side of the ball and say Aaron Williams. Some will go with Madden Sanker. There's even a portion of the fan base that looks at Jamari Johnson, thinking that he could end up as the best prospect in the class. There's not a lot of talk about Adonijah Green. I don't think that there's enough. Let me put it that way. And a lot of that could be my fault as well. I mean, I'm definitely not perfect. I think that I have gone this whole past fall and not necessarily done the due diligence on just seeing how good Adonijah Green was. I always knew that he was going to be a highly rated guy, probably a borderline 4-star, 3-star level talent, on the 24/7 Sports Composite, but he's had an extremely large jump. 24/7 Sports had this to say about him in an article, noted him as a riser in the rankings. It says the edge rusher checks the box of a quote-unquote multifaceted player in the front. It doesn't matter if he's playing up or down. He's a threat to cause havoc in the offensive backfield. As he fills out and continues to grow with coaching and refine his technique, he will put his 7'1" wingspan to use, chasing quarterbacks in the ACC. So Adonijah Green, 6'5", 206 pounds, listed on his profile, from Ellenwood, Georgia, star of Cedar Grove High School. Had a lot of solid offers throughout the process, was a player that Louisville needed to hold on to when Jeff Brom got hired and Scott Satterfield left. And it seemed like there was a chance that he could flip to Cincinnati or go down to the SEC, but he ends up making a visit to campus, a key recruiting weekend for Jeff Brom and company, and he reaffirms his commitment and signs his national letter of intent with the Cardinals. Adonijah Green, I think it's interesting they mentioned his wingspan being 7'1". I mean, that is incredible to even think about, being 6'5", 7'1" wingspan. Currently ranked as the 157th best prospect in the top 24/7 sports rankings, 20th best edge rusher, and 14th best in the state of Georgia. His composite grew a little bit as well. Top 200 in the composite, 22nd best edge rusher, 15th best in the state of Georgia. I like how it mentions the versatility there. And, a lot of this is going to depend on how Jeff Brom and company project his game at the next level. Is he a guy that is, down in the stance as a defensive end? Or are we going to see him in a Yasir Abdullah role? I think that he is a premier pass rusher, a guy with a ton of athleticism. Like I said, I think he'll need to continue to grow in the strength and conditioning room and in that program. Kind of like Ashton Gelati comes to Louisville, needing to add some size and weight, and absolutely transforms his body and his physique in less than 6 months, and is immediately eligible to play right away, or immediately able to play right away, not eligible. But I like this, this possibility for Louisville to play him either as an outside linebacker or as a defensive end. Has that, like I said, athleticism, that speed off the edge. You watch his film, and it's incredible how he uses, his physicality, his length, his athleticism to get through opposing offensive linemen into the opposing backfield. Does a good job in pursuit, chasing down opposing ball carriers, and is just a guy who in high school lived in the opposing backfield. So I think that we as a fan base, myself included, have overlooked Adonijah Green for way too long. And that's not to say that we haven't said that he's going to be good or we love the commitment. But I think that we don't talk about him enough when it talks about the highest ceiling or possible highest ceiling in the class. I think that there is a ton of potential here. Obviously, you had to refine that technique. Like the article said, we'll need to continue to bolster strength and add weight in the strength and conditioning program. But as probably it's not going to be a thing where he's going to be coming out of the gate right away and playing significant snaps, or, making an impact right away. I think we're going to see him in a position to where year 2, year 3 is when we're going to start to see him, in situations where he can make big time plays, get after the quarterback as well. I like the, I just like the versatility in this recruitment as well. You look at when Louisville ended up getting Devontae Fields and having that size and length on the edge, that athleticism, getting after the opposing quarterback, and it allowed the Cardinals defense to absolutely transfer. No, that's not it. Transform. I'm sitting here saying transfer, and I lost my words. I apologize. It's been a long morning. But being able to transform that pass rush, I think, as well as, I think that I'm trying to think of some more players over the years, comparable in size that kind of fit into that mix. Devontae Fields is the only one that really comes to mind at the moment, with, Adonijah Green being that big of a player. So ultimately, an instance to where Louisville fans, if you haven't already, go back and watch his film. It's time to get excited about what Adonijah Green can do here at Louisville. I'm really, really interested to see how he performs in fall camp here in about 5 months or so, 7 months or so, really, and seeing if he can find a way onto the field this year, or if it's going to be more so of a long-term project. So, moving on into the second segment, we'll talk about Jamari Johnson, who also rose up a ton. We'll do that here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. With a no sweat first bet is what they call it. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money lines to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The bets for the upcoming week of college basketball are very, very interesting, and it's on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So join today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You have to be 21 or over in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as a non-withdrawable sportsbook bonus bet, which expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Thanks again, everyone, for making Locked On the Louisville your first listen of the day. Do yourself a favor. Locked On is heading to the Senior Bowl. Get inside analysis from the hosts that cover the NFL's next generation in college. Find out which NFL draft boards these players will be climbing all in one location. Subscribe to Locked On NFL Draft for nightly live shows from the Senior Bowl on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9 o'clock Eastern. All right, heading into the second segment, we're talking about the final 247 rankings. 3 Cardinals made the list. Just talked about Adonijah Green and why Louisville fans need to be excited about what Green is going to be able to do at Louisville. The second player that rose up boards significantly as well, tight end Jamari Johnson. Johnson comes in at the 188th best prospect in the country, 11th best athlete, and 16th best in the state of California. Johnson, 6'4", 270 pounds, from Inglewood, California, played multiple positions for Inglewood High School, lining up at quarterback at times, out wide at wide receiver, and also at tight end. He projects as a tight end at the next level. A prospect that for a long time was in the top 700. Looking back to last spring, he rose up a couple hundred spots to where he might have been borderline 4-star ranking. Now he's squarely in the mix, top 200. I think that this ranking is 100% spot on. Look, I think that Jamari Johnson has all ACC level potential. I think that a lot of people that you talk to would probably say the same thing. When you talk about the highest ceiling for a player in this class in Flywheel 23 for Louisville, there's a good amount of people that will tell you Jamari Johnson because of, his physical abilities, his size for the position, and his ability to move for his size. You watch what he was able to do at Inglewood. Lining up as a quarterback in wildcat packages, being thrown out wide in one-on-one coverage, and then also, thrown in as a traditional tight end. So the versatility is there. I had a saying for the past 2 years with Marshawn Ford, and that is, he's too quick for opposing linebackers to, cover him well, but he's too large for opposing cornerbacks to cover well. And I think that is kind of the same line of thinking for a player like Jamari Johnson for his, 6'4", 270-pound frame. He's got, a size that allows you to probably play him immediately. He's going to be a guy that Louisville will likely use right out of the gate. So very interesting to see, just how good of a freshman season he's going to have. Jack Plummer, the quarterback from the transfer from California. There's a lot of, wide receiver turnover from this past year in the way that, they're bringing in a lot of new guys, some very talented guys, Jamari Thrash, Kevin Coleman Jr., Jimmy Callaway, Jaden Thompson, so on and so forth. So I think that there's going to be a lot of attention on the wide receiving core, on the running back committee. So it's going to open up a lot of opportunities, in my opinion, for Jamari Johnson. But landing in the top 200 here, it makes a lot of sense because you watch the film of Jamari and he's just a purely dominant prospect. In the California ranks, he essentially balled out at multiple positions. And if you wonder, okay, well, he's 6'4", 270. How well is he going to be able to move? Like I said, he lined up at quarterback a lot this year and was used in wildcat situations, read option situations. So I don't think that there's going to be too much concern about that. The main thing for me is the tight end position has kind of been transformed over the past 5-6 years or so. We've seen guys go from being more traditional blockers first and pass catchers second to kind of flip-flopping those roles. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, although Kittle is a very good run blocker as well, and they use him as such. George Kittle, very, very solid pass catcher. Kyle Pitts has completely changed the way tight ends are utilized in the college ranks. Pitts was used as a wide receiver at times. You're talking about guys like Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid. I think Michael Mayer's more of a blocker, but he's a guy that's been used a lot as a pass catcher as well. So you're starting to see tight ends be more of a focal point of passing offenses than they have been in, let's say, the past 2 decades or so. So it's going to be one of those situations to where I'm not saying that he's going to be the focal point of Louisville's offense right away, but it does make you wonder, what is his role going to be in year one? There's not a ton of players in that room that I think are going to start or have a potential to start. I think you're going to have guys that fill in depth. There's been talks of the Cardinals getting a player like George Burhan to flip from Purdue. We'll see how that goes leading up to National Signing Day. But at this point in time, I think that Jamari Johnson, unless they go with the transfer tight end in the portal, I think that Jamari Johnson is going to be probably the presumed starter going into the 2023 season, which is not a bad thing. I think that he is one of those players that, when ranked in the mid 3-star level, I'm like, are we sure? Are we sure after you look at that film, after you see what all of these analysts say about him, are we sure that Jamari Johnson is only a top 500 player and not so much a top 250 player? Well, now that the Top 247 sports list came out, in terms of the composite, he's ranked as the 333rd best player, 15th best athlete, and 24th best prospect in the state of California. That's why, sure, the Cardinals lost Reuben Owens. They lost DeAndre Moore. But there was a time where there was an opportunity that Louisville was going to lose both Moore and possibly Johnson. There were talks that Jamari was possibly going to go to Oregon. And, a lot of people were like, man, we can't lose them both. So Jamari Johnson did not announce his decision during the early signing period, but with his commitment at the Adidas All-American Bowl, it can be inferred that he signed in the early signing day period. He just didn't announce it until he was able to do so publicly in early January. So, like I said, could have lost both of those commitments. I think that losing DeAndre Moore is tough. There's no way to spin it, but it could have been a lot worse if you were to lose Jamari Johnson as well, because despite the ranking or lack thereof, a lot of Louisville fans knew that Johnson was probably one of, if not the most talented prospect in the class. So extremely excited to see how he projects to have a first year, or I completely messed it up. How good of a first year he projects to have. Let me rephrase. Is he going to be used more so out wide? Are we going to see him as a traditional tight end? Really kind of depending on what his offense looks like. So I think at the end of the day, we'll kind of see how that works out and all that good stuff. Heading into the final segment, I'm talking about the 3 prospects that made the Top 247 list for the Louisville Cardinals. Obviously, Adonijah Green, Jamari Johnson. The third one, cornerback from St. John Bosco, Aaron Williams. We'll do that here in just a second. I want to say thank you all before we do for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, including on YouTube and WHAS 11 Plus 5 days a week, your team every day. As I mentioned, no Pierce Clarkson, no Madden Sanker, no William Fowles in the Top 247 sports rankings in terms of final rankings. But outside of Adonijah Green, outside of Jamari Johnson, Aaron Williams, the St. John Bosco cornerback, was the final prospect to be added to the rankings, 225th in the country, according to the 24/7 rankings. Kind of a little bit of a fall off for him. He was through the whole process ranked as a top 200 player, and he still is, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, 197th best prospect, 23rd best cornerback, 15th best in the state of California. Obviously has offers from some of the best schools in the country, including Alabama, Arkansas, moving on down the list, Georgia, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Oregon, Penn State, so on and so forth. Committed to the Cardinals back last summer and has stayed firm in his commitment since. This past season, the 6'2", 185-pound quarterback balled out for St. John Bosco, to say the least, but did so a lot on a torn ACL, even played in the state championship on a torn ACL and had a phenomenal season. Now, granted, that could have repercussions on this upcoming season because he has to have surgery. I believe he already had surgery. So he will not have any off-season workouts, no spring ball, probably no fall camp as well. So it'll be interesting to see, how much is Aaron Williams going to play as a freshman for the Louisville Cardinals when you factor in the injuries and things of that nature. You also look at it in the sense of, even if he does get cleared at some point during the season, which with the way ACL recoveries have been kind of revolutionized over the past couple of years, he probably could see, an opportunity at some point in the season. But at that point, there's going to be a period where he hasn't really done a lot of football workouts over the past X amount of months. So you wonder, is it going to be a situation where are we going to see Aaron Williams play a lot this year? Is he going to be a possible redshirt candidate due to the medical aspect of things? Even if he does come back, is he going to play more than 4 games? Probably not. But I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I'm not sure what the timeline is going to look like. I know every situation is different. If he was able to play on that torn ACL, you wonder if it's not as bad as other, torn ACLs situations, to where maybe he's back a little quicker. Who knows? I still think that that's pretty much a major operation. So something to look at. According to Greg Biggins, 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst, he projected Aaron Williams as a second-day NFL draft selection, rounds 2 or 3. He says, Williams is as physical as they come at the corner position. He has good length, long arms, and plays with a mean streak. He's very tough in run support and blows up wide receiver screens and just about anything run towards his side of the field. He tracks the football well and shows good ball skills. He doesn't play much receiver for his high school teams, but as shown on the 7-on-7 circuit, he's very good on that side of the ball as well. Has an excellent change of direction and has improved athletically, although injuries have hurt him the last 2 years. So a couple things to look at. Hopefully that this isn't a sign of things to come in terms of injuries in the long term down the road. Hopefully he's able to get past the injury bug after this operation. But I like what Greg Biggins says. He's very solid in the rushing game. Very, very good in terms of using his size and length to go against opposing number 1 cornerbacks. Good size, 6'2", but with him having receivers, ball skills, does a good job of high pointing the football. A solid, ability to stay with opposing receivers with that change of direction. Just overall, a very fundamentally sound cornerback. Doesn't have one aspect of his game that I believe is lacking more than others. And probably doesn't do one thing extremely great, but a lot of things very, very, very good, which is very solid to have that, overall foundation. But I'm very excited to see what Aaron Williams can do here at Louisville. I think he projects as a type of lockdown corner type prospect, maybe not necessarily on Jair Alexander's level, but possibly better than Keitrell Clark, and a player that's better than Keitrell Clark and maybe close to Jair Alexander. Obviously, that is saying a lot considering that Alexander was a first-round draft selection. Going to be tough, but that would spell a lot of good things here for Louisville in the long term. So, like I mentioned, 3 prospects: Adonijah Green, Jamari Johnson, Aaron Williams made the final top 247 rankings. Like I said, not the end-all, be-all for guys that didn't make that list. Still could have very solid college careers, obviously. But very interesting to see these 3 players make the list. So I'm excited for them. There's going to be another episode today talking about some recruiting news and also the Louisville basketball loss to Notre Dame. So be sure to check that out. But that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We will see you right back here very soon.